Tonight on the TTRPG Flip Through, we're talking about Dead Letter Society. This is a two-player journaling or letter writing game. Could also be one player, but I think it functions best as a two-player letter writing game. And as you can probably tell, this is about vampires. With this wonderful artwork on the cover here, it's got this skull with the vampire fangs and just those little touches of light in the eyes there. This comes from our Montford Tales in the United Kingdom. I'm really excited to have it as part of our Solo Duet collection. What is really special about this book is its design, and it is filled with this artwork from artist-creator Rory Montford. Lays out and about the game. What do you need to play? 1 or 2 players, safety tools. Now this is a game about vampires, so it does do a good job of talking about safety at the table, a whole spread dedicated to it, along with content warnings. And then it goes into setting up this game. And again, like you can see that what I love about this is that the layout is conscious of the illustration. You can see it here in the slight arrangement of the text against the snake here. And this is not just black and white. There is subtle uses of color throughout. But let's go back into the content. So setting up the game, the first thing you do is you set the tone. So again, deciding, is this going to be about conspiracies? Is this going to be about loneliness? Come to an agreement on the tone. And then you come to agreement on genre, area, and time frame. So again, setting the board, the scene, the stage of where the story is going to take place, and coming to agreement on that. And it really speaks to the flexibility of this. There are examples of the flexibility at the end of this book. Again, with this artwork. Love it. So then you work together to build the world. And you do this by selecting traits that define the world. And each player selects, in this case, you're deciding about a vampire, since vampires have different lore depending on what fiction you're using. Players select 2, and then 2 of those traits become blessings, and 2 of them become curses as decided by the players. And they give you examples, and this is, again, a demonstration of the quality of the design work here. Is there is examples sprinkled throughout to really help guide gameplay. What is the human world, and how does that relate to vampires? Sort of the same mechanism where the players each pick 2 traits, and you decide 2 as deplorable and 2 as admirable. So they could be science, creativity, critical thinking, culture. Some examples. And then finally, Vampire Society. Each player picks, again, take turns picking 2 terms from this list. And they describe how vampires relate to the human world, or how it is structured. And instead of being a blessing or a curse, you ask a question you will try to answer as you play. So, for example, again, examples scattered throughout. Hideaways. We live in secret, hidden in basements and sewers. Will we ever walk again? There's the question at the end. Secrecy or servitude. Older vampires hoard power. How will we break these bonds and be free? Now you go to build your character, and there is provided at the back of this book, there is an application form. And so you can see here what's required, a sanctuary description, an ally or a rival, your age, your apparent age, your sire. State your ambition for joining the society. And the Dead Letter Society, boy, I really skimmed over the hook here, didn't I? So the Dead Letter Society is sort of a secret society, or its intentions are unknown. But what it is it's a way for vampires to exchange these letters. So that is the in-character purpose for the game, or for the letter writing. So you're reaching out to the Dead Letter Society, and your character probably has a reason that they are looking for correspondence with another vampire. All right. Well, now since I've talked about the hook, we can move on to assets. And this, I think, is the first place where some of the game mechanics come into play a little bit. This is a fiction-first game, much in the way that Blades in the Dark is. The mechanics in this game, there's only a few of them, and they're really used to help guide the progression of narrative elements throughout the game. So assets are not so much a resource, but a narrative device. And depending on your actions throughout the story and the drawing of a tarot card, this is a tarot card driven game with prompts. Your asset might be damaged, you might lose it, you might develop that asset. So it's sort of a resource, it's an asset that will progress throughout the game depending on a random element. It gives you some examples of asset types and inspiration. So it could be an item, could be a location, an actor, a scar. A scar is a little bit different in that you can heal it. An ambition. And then we get to how to play the game. So it's broken into 3 phases. The first player starts off by writing a letter, and then they send it. And player B then has a society phase where they resolve a society event. And that is done again through tarot cards. And then there is a chronicling phase where they read the letter and they have chronicle points. And that's another little game mechanic here. So you do have this resource called chronicle points that you can use in that phase to develop different narrative elements. So again, it's narrative first. The rules are in service of the narrative. And the nice thing about this is there's an overlapping that's going on here. As you progress through this, player A writes a letter, player B does their society phase. They are then moving on to their chronicle phase. They are writing a letter. While that's happening, A is waiting for the letter so they can progress through the society phase. So you can see that even while you're waiting for your response to the letter, there's still activity to be done. And I think there's a nice way in which this, because it is a letter writing game and it can be done asynchronously, there's a lot of flexibility in how you play it. It could be that it is done at a table over a couple hours face to face. It could be that you play it with actual written letters to each other. So there's just a lot of interesting ways that you could approach it. Goes into details of the letter writing phase, and that the only rule here is that the letters are the story. So being clear that this is where the core of that narrative is happening. Gives you some advice on those letters. Society phase. This is where you draw in a major arcana card. You make a note and you resolve the prompt and asset development. So for example, if you drew the devil, you would look at, it has some descriptions here: servitude, complacency, temptation. You develop an item, you suffer a scar, you regress an ambition. What are you willing to sacrifice to achieve your goal? What will you turn a blind eye? The inner echelons of society call to you, but the cost is high. So again, each of these is a nice prompt to help develop how you are interacting with vampiric society. After that, you'll move on to the chronicle phase where you read the letter and you spend up to 3 chronicle points. You don't have to, but you could spend up to 3. And this is where you pull out your minor arcana cards. So you state what you would like to explore further. So maybe it could be something that was in the letter that you just read, or it could be something that happened in the society phase. Maybe there was that devil prompt talked about power. Maybe you want to learn something about a powerful figure. You ask that question and then you pull a minor prompt. Let's say the Queen of Pentacles. A chance encounter with another vampire fascinates you. Their generosity is surprising. So I have a chance encounter with some other vampire who has a lot of knowledge about this powerful vampire that I'm trying to learn something about. Maybe I have to forfeit an item for that. So that's an example of what would happen during that chronicle phase. Gives you, again, more examples, more clearly describing that with card examples here, what actions and letters might look like. It does talk about table talk. So this game, you could play it with no table talk at all and have it be the dialogue between players be totally restricted to the letter writing. But it also makes clear that that's not a requirement. And you could both be moving towards, you both want to move towards a satisfying resolution. Sometimes that would require some table talk. Then sometimes there will be conflicts, right? If you have these 2 independent players that are writing stories about a shared world, inevitably there's going to be some conflict that needs to be resolved. Statements that don't align about the world or about assets or about outcomes. And it gives you mechanisms to resolve that. What happens if a character dies? You could easily just pick up another vampire to take their place. The Dead Letter Society hooked up the survivor with a new person, or maybe they were related to the original person. And then to the end of the game, and I forgot again to describe this earlier, you come to an agreed upon length of the game. It could be 3 letters, 3 or 4 letters back and forth. You could make it a number. You could say a certain event needs to occur, like a conspiracy needs to be revealed. You could also say it will conclude when one of my characters dies, or one of my character breaks away from their sire, something like that. Gives you some fun optional rules, so you could play with outwriting, just using voice notes, different way to handle the prompts, different tarot deck variations. It does give you an example of how to do solo play. You could play both sides, but you could also play They Never Reply, where you're writing these letters, but no one's coming back to you. No one's responding. Or maybe you're writing to the society. After that, more great artwork, of course, followed by these magical are the major arcana prompts and the minor arcana prompts. All very well thought out, fully described with different options, which is a really great way to do prompts. It provides a lot of flexibility to fit it into the story. After the prompts, we get a play set of pre-generated characters and letters of introduction and pre-generated worlds. So like Lovecraftian London. Rome, play in ancient Rome, the Republic to Empire. To modern day. So again, the system is very flexible. easily could provides you with pathways into these different settings. And then the end one here, Gothic, classic. And then as far from classic as I can think of, the generation ships. So you're a vampire on an interstellar generation ship. So just a great way of exploring the genre and blowing it out. And again, each one includes these full character descriptions with letters. So if you really wanted to jump in, you could just get started here. You could even use this as a jumping off point for a solo game. Gives you a roll table at the end here if you don't have tarot cards. Your application forms, a couple of them. And end with the tag. Death doesn't mean you can't write back. There we go. That is Dead Letter Society from R. Montford. So thanks for watching this. If you like these, please like and subscribe. And check out this title at Tabletop Bookshelf. We're an online independent bookstore specialized in tabletop role-playing games. Really love to share these solo journaling and duet games, and happy to carry this sort of quality work